Hey guys, welcome to another video, and in this one we're going to be talking about the in-game economy of Assassin's Creed and how they can improve it for Assassin's Creed Empire and shit, or if that's even going to be a thing. But basically I want to talk about this because Ubisoft have put it up on Reddit that they want feedback on this stuff, so I thought maybe I'd do what James did, and by the way I'll leave a link to his video in the description, and just get my thoughts in there while the window is still open. Now of course this is going to be focusing on the in-game economy of Assassin's Creed in the games Black Flag, Rogue, Unity and Syndicate, as they are of course the recent games. Now I'm going to focus on Black Flag and Rogue first of all, but they seem to have gotten rid of this in Unity and Syndicate, but it was there to a certain extent, and that is grinding. Now in the past 4 Assassin's Creed games that are mentioned above, they have got a bit of grinding in there, and it's not the good kind. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't like spending hours upgrading for one thing to be upgraded, then to be able to do something and still go through on a toothpick. So by that I mean I don't want to have to grind for hours to only just be about able to do something, but have to grind even further if I want to make that a little bit easier and a little less stressful on myself. And I don't really like games that have too much grinding in, and to be fair, Black Flag and Rogue were worse for grinding because the Jackdaw and the Morrigan played a huge part in those games, and you had to upgrade those, otherwise you couldn't face the missions that you had to do. So in other words, saying that you had to sort of grind a lot to be able to do missions, naval missions and stuff like that, and it really limited the progression of the story and made the playthrough a lot longer than it had to be, where they could have been putting more stuff in to make the game longer. They put the grinding, which I feel as if it shouldn't be there. I mean, I do understand sort of leveling up as you go, and maybe like how in Watch Dogs you could get skill upgrades quite easily and then use them and invest them in places, because Watch Dogs sort of did this sort of grinding business quite well, as it wasn't too difficult and it didn't take hours and hours and hours to be able to upgrade yourself to the full like max. It took like 30 minutes maybe to get like 1 skill point, or maybe 2 or 3 skill points depending on what you did, and that was pretty simple. If they implemented that into Assassin's Creed, I think they would have a better grinding system if they wanted to put grinding in there. Now I'm not saying that they did a poor job of the grinding in the games, because they definitely could have done a lot worse, but I feel as if it took up too much time and it took too much effort from you to be able to do something, and it shouldn't take that much time and effort outside of the main story to be able to progress with something that you're so invested in and want to know more about, but you've got to do 3 hours of grinding to even come close to being able to afford that hull armor that you want. So really, if they go the Watch Dogs approach, like I said before, they could definitely make some improvements there, because the Watch Dogs skill point upgrade, they came fairly easily. You feel like you've earned them, and they usually come after each mission or side mission, and it's really helpful. Now the next point that they mentioned in their little Reddit post is upgrades. Now upgrades definitely could do with improving. Like in Unity and Syndicate they had upgrade skill trees and such, but really with Assassin's Creed Syndicate they advertised Jacob and Evie as having different skills and specializations, when in all reality they were both the exact same. So that's not really going to play much in with the what am I saying. That's not going to factor into the next game much if it's only going to have one protagonist. But if they go with the 2 protagonist approach ever again, then they need to make sure that if they advertise the characters as different, they have skills that are different and different skill trees altogether, or with more than one perk that's different. Like for example, Evie only will have the chameleon ability over Jacob, and Jacob only had some combat bonus, and really after upgrading them both to the max they didn't feel any different from each other. So that's basically one thing that I want to bring to the table there. But if they want to implement this sort of advice into their future game, they could sort of add different skill trees, like how in Borderlands how you can upgrade certain skill trees but you don't have the ability to upgrade all of them on one playthrough, and introduce multiple playthroughs so that you can actually explore all these opportunities and this will present more ways to play the game. So this is how they could do the upgrade system, is by having different skill trees that you could invest in, and therefore make your character either combat heavy, stealth heavy, or something else, and still be able to enjoy the game and play through it a second time in a different way, in a different style, and play it again. Now I feel as if this would be very helpful, and it would also mean that we could have diversity between characters. Say you could have, well, players, sorry, so one person could play it one way and someone else would have a completely different experience as a result of this particular approach to the skill trees. But that's about summing up what I wanted to say about skill trees. However, I'm aware that they do come with some sort of grind in Syndicate where you have to kill a load of people before you get a skill point, which again comes back to grinding, not necessarily for resources this time, but actually for skill points to be able to upgrade. Now, in Unity and Syndicate, they both have the problem where you have to get a ridiculous amount of skill points before you can upgrade anything, like when it comes to either want to buy something, upgrade something, anything like that. You have to do a ridiculous amount of stuff to get it, and in Unity, it wasn't necessarily with the skill, so I'm going to avoid that and talk about that in a later point in the video. But in Syndicate, you had to kill so many people to get one skill point. Sometimes there were skill points that, well, some things required, say, 5 or 6 skill points to get. So that took a long time, and that was a lot of grinding and a lot of time dedicated to playing the game. And I don't know how many hours I've got into Syndicate right now. Let me check Uplay. I have got 45 hours into Syndicate, so it's not as bad as some games, but it still takes a long time, and there's a lot of time between doing missions, especially in the between sequences, and that really does break up the experience and sort of makes me lose interest in the story a little bit more. So they could implement a less grind heavy sort of leveling system that will make it a lot better for me to enjoy the story, and for many other players, I'm sure, so they can enjoy the story through a leveling system that doesn't try to break it up over the course of a few hours when in all reality it's only a couple of missions. But that's just me, and that's talking from my experience, and you may think differently, but that's what I've experienced. Now, I do like the skill tree layout of Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and how it can be done, and how they could have added different skill trees across maybe several pages, and that would have been really cool to see if they did that, but instead they didn't really do that. But they're on the right lines with the skill tree that they did implement there. However, they need to make sure that you can have diverse paths, and that would probably make for a very interesting skill tree, and will really complement the player more than anything, and that's one of the things that I think would really help the franchise. Now, one thing that I've really disliked in recent Assassin's Creed games is when you go to start a mission and it says you need to upgrade your stuff, or you need to level up your character a little bit more. Like, I believe that you should make the missions complement the player's level, so that if the player is a level 10, they face level 10 enemies. If I'm only using levels numbers as a suggestion here, or if they're level 1, then it's level 1 enemies. But at the same time, that would really sort of remove the challenge a little bit. So if they're level 10, maybe level 12. So if, say, they're level 7, then put in opponents 2 levels above them at max, instead of having this upgrade to sort of continue thing, which really broke up the main story for me, and really sort of irritated me in all the 4 games that they want to look at here. But I do sort of understand why they put it in there, but if they had the sort of game sort of do what it needs to do with the leveling, so that it is the right challenge for the player and their level appropriately, so that if you do enter that level that mission at an earlier level than perhaps some other people, you still are met with the same challenge as them, and I believe that'll be really cool to see. So, you know, I'm not saying remove the element of you need to upgrade to continue a little bit further, like that. Well, you don't necessarily have to do it, it's just recommended, but I'm just saying that maybe this will be very helpful for them to do. So what I'm trying to say in all my blabbling is that they should have the missions complement the player's level, rather than the player's level having to complement the missions to be able to complete them, so that the challenge is appropriate for the player and the level at hand, which would really upgrade the experience for me and make me feel as if, yeah, this is actually quite good. So it'll also remove the excessive grinding and no challenge afterwards business. So if someone does grind, they still get a challenge out at the end of it, and they feel as if their skills have really paid off in that situation, which I feel as if would be a really good thing for Assassin's Creed. Now let's talk about buying stuff. Now, in a lot of games, mainly RPGs, that certain items that you carry do have different damage ratings, defense ratings, and etc. Maybe stealth ratings and etc. for Assassin's Creed. But is it necessary? Not necessarily, and I feel as if there should be some perks to upgrading your weaponry, but you shouldn't be like forced into a position where you have to upgrade either your outfit to look different from how the advertised character looks. Say, for example, in Unity, you had to upgrade to look completely different to Arno, how he's advertised, to be able to continue with the game. but I don't want to necessarily play through Unity with a phantom mask on, so I'm just trying to say that maybe they should have them there for perks that they give rather than to, you know, upgrade health and stuff, which should all be focused on upgrades of the player instead of the outfits and weapons and equipment that the player has, which should all bring perks of their own. Of course, these things should make playing the game easier as the game progresses, but it shouldn't be as heavy as it was in Unity. Now, the outfit business wasn't really a problem in Syndicate because none of the outfits really stood out much above the others, and they all had the separate perks and helpful business besides from the beginning ones. And I just think that they should focus on making sure that it's all, you know, so you don't have to do these things and you don't have to spend ridiculous amounts of money, which comes into the microtransactions business, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, to be able to do these things, or to get a shortcut to have to pay with real money to be able to do it the quicker. Now, I do like customization, but I don't feel as if it should be mandatory for playing the game itself and being able to upgrade and stuff. So the customization should be exclusively a side thing, and I believe everything in the customization should be a little cheaper than 5 million points. Actually, that's an exaggeration. It's more like a few 100,000 at worst. It's like from 10,000 to a few 100,000 of something, and sometimes it can be thousands and thousands of whatever the in-game money currency is, and that too can be annoying, which leads me into my next point, which is microtransactions, which, to be fair, is probably one of the least important things there. I mean, people seem to be very keen on microtransactions these days, but having, say, different currencies for things, like, so you could, for example, pay with your own money outside of the game and get something done quicker, I feel as if that should go, because that's not necessarily... All they need to do is remove all this grinding business so that it would stop trying to get people to necessarily pay with their own money rather than play through the game and grind for hours. I know that that's sort of a tactic that I haven't picked up on, and it could be the case, but I don't believe that's necessarily all there is to it. They should definitely try to keep it exclusively in-game and not try to get people to buy this stuff with other forms of currency, such as real money. And they should probably put in different skill points to money that you use to buy stuff in shops, like medicine and etc., which, again, is very... Yeah, I think that should definitely be a thing. But these hack stuff and etc. are not necessarily necessary to be there, which means that they should probably go, because I've noticed that they're just sort of trying to get people to pay with their own money to do something quicker. Like, I know that sometimes it's sort of in the way, otherwise, like, you do hours of stuff, so they should add like an easy way out. You have to do hours and hours of grinding to be able to afford something. Maybe it's something a little trivial that you may think is a little trivial, but actually you need it in game, which I believe you shouldn't need it in game as a mandatory thing to begin with, but they do somehow manage to do that, and they have done that in Unity and in Syndicate as well, where everything's ridiculously expensive and you sort of need it to be able to handle enemies quicker and play the game with a better and less challenged experience, which I feel is a little bit over the top. Like, things should be not that expensive. Like, okay, let's put Assassin's Creed Syndicate in perspective. Like, money wasn't that common back then. You couldn't get thousands and thousands of pounds. What's worth thousands and thousands of pounds, you probably could have gotten for a few hundred back then, which, I mean, is probably something that they should think about. I know some things should be more expensive than others, and much more expensive, and rightly so, but when everything is ridiculously expensive, you start to think this is actually going to take a lot of time to do, and you don't want to be spending time, because it breaks up the story there. And I like to take my time, of course. I don't like being rushed with games, but I don't want to have to be forced into a position where I have to break up the story over the course of a few days to be able to understand what I'm doing, because I will lose like this understanding of the story, and I need to be able to do these missions. But I don't feel as if the missions should revolve around sort of these things, so you should be able to do them without having to do hours and hours and hours of, I don't know, customization and upgrades and stuff like that. I have no idea what I'm talking about anymore. Finally, we should talk about like purchasing stuff. So I'm just trying to say that purchasing things shouldn't be mandatory. I don't know if I've actually covered this because I actually am waffling quite a lot in this video, but purchasing things should not be mandatory. Like, you shouldn't have to purchase things. You should be able to do things as a start off with the starting kit, because it isn't an RPG come the end of the day, or it isn't meant to be an RPG, and I probably don't see it working as an RPG game. However, I honestly want to see sort of a more straightforward sort of look on things. Of course, add the challenge that's necessary to the game itself, but have it so that the gameplay experience isn't broken up by microtransactions and the need to grind to get resources, level upgrades, and so on and so forth. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Sorry if I seem to be waffling at any point in this video. I don't have the speaking skills of Adolf Hitler, so I'm not really that good at talking, but hopefully I got my point across to you guys or anyone who's watching this. But also, I'm sorry if it's very confusing, and if anyone's got any if anyone's unclear on what I'm saying, please be sure to go ahead and ask away in the comment section, and I will explain to you as soon as I possibly can what I was trying to say. But thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Be sure to go ahead and like, subscribe, share, comment, and I'll see you all in the next one with another video. So thanks for watching, guys. So yeah.